Year 1, recognising odd and even numbers, but now to 20, and we talked a lot about the pattern in the final unit. So, it is always 2, 4, 6 and 8. It doesn't matter how big the number was. They were quite impressed when they realised that 96 is actually an even number as well, and the bigger the number is, the better they like it. So that was quite good last week. Counting in 5s, but also in 3s from 0, so beginning to talk about multiplication, but not in the way that they think. They just think they can count in 3s. Comparing two numbers. Now, more than and less than. Less than they kind of get, more than they seem to be having trouble with. They want to, greater than is the nice word you'd like to use, but they think of bigger rather than, so getting them to understand that 87 is actually bigger, a greater number than 13 is quite a difficult concept, and I was doing it last week with some of them and they just didn't understand. So if you could do that at home, that would be quite useful. But even with numbers to 20 to start with, that 9 is a greater number than whatever. Number sequences, again, a very similar kind of thing. So can they fill in the gaps in an even number list to 20? Can they fill in the gaps in counting 3s up to 15 if 12 and 9 are missing? Things like that gets them to think. But also counting backwards. Now this is difficult. So if you can count in 5s to 50, can you then go the other way back to 0? That kind of thing, playing with numbers. Beginning to use the plus and the minus and the equal signs more written notation maths. Still in horizontal lines, not in columns like we learned, but to begin, and then to be able to read the sentence back so that they can say that 9 plus 3 makes whatever, or equals, beginning to use the vocabulary more. And also starting to use triangles and squares and other shapes for a missing number, so that 9 plus something equals 12. What's missing in the middle, doesn't matter what the shape is, what's the number. So they're understanding more small number bonds, not massive numbers, but that they can use it quickly. We use the number bonds to 10 all the time. That's what I've been telling them. Once you've got those, you can add up massive numbers, because it's only using those that's how you do it, even when you're an adult, and it's just getting them to play with them, really. Adding 9. The easy way to add 9, you teach them using the 100 square, you add 10, you take 1 away. It's the teacher beginning with year 1 to teach them tricks like that. Year 2, the other day, we're adding on 21 and 19. They're like, there's no way we could do it. So it's just the same as adding on 9 and adding on 11 that you would do. Do you know how to do it? Yeah. Well, it's the same, just that you add on 2 10s and another 1, and you take away 2. Oh, yeah. So it's the beginnings of that, really. Money, finding totals, giving change, always really hard. They don't seem to make the link between it just being numbers and subtracting. Solving problems, very simple ones, not 2-step problems with year 1, just that we'll read something. With sweets is often a good one. If you've got 9 sweets and 3 of them, how many do you get each? Like that. If you've got a pizza and there's 3 of you and you cut it into 6 slices, how many do you get each? Oh, I know, always works. Capacity, you're beginning to use litres instead of what's more than half full, empty, full, which is what we've been doing so far. Using the word estimate again, talking about symmetry, 2Ds and 3D shapes, which they now will need to revise 3D shapes again, but they can talk about them now, the properties of, begin to use the word of face for a side of a shape, things like that. The time is something that some children can do very well, some find very hard, so we'll start with o'clock again, 1/2 then year 2 move on to 1/4 and 1/4. And solving word problems, they're beginning to think, if it's school starts at 9 o'clock and lunchtime is at 12 o'clock, how many hours between the two, that kind of thing. But also with year 1, very, very important, number bonds to 10. Can they tell you that 6 and 4 makes 10 and 5 and 5 makes 10 and 7 and 3 makes 10? And can they use them? And can they add on in their head by putting the first number in their head and using their fingers if they need to? Or you've seen them at home, those that do going, oh, it's that many. But can they subtract as well? Really, really important that we get the basics in place now. Year 2, the same but on a bit, basically. Counting in steps of 3 or 4, forwards and backwards to 30. least. Once they've got it, they can do it. And we look at, using the 100 square, you can look at the patterns that those multiplications make.
100 squares are a really useful thing to have up, actually. Even if you have, you can get them in posters, they're really, really useful.
Yeah, they are, because there's so many patterns that you can, that when we were counting in 5s and they had 100 square and coloured it in, and the pattern of 5 is, it's a strip down the middle and it's a strip on the end. And it always ends in a 5 or a 0. The pattern of 3, you can get lots of diagonal patterns, and the odds and evens pattern is just one and then the other. And it really brings it, the more visual you can make it, the easier it is to remember.
And then they start looking for patterns themselves and spotting things.
Which then in year 2 they're encouraged to do, is to extend the pattern. And if they've started to colour in a pattern on 100 square, without working it out, they should be able to see the visual kind of, it's going to be there, and then they can work it out and go, it was. And then we're working on to the things we haven't done yet. Rounding up numbers to 100 to the nearest 10. Is it closer? Now, it's easy to use, if you use a line from 80 to 90 and put a line, say, at about 7, that's the easiest way to do it to start with, so they can visually see, it's nearly at the end, isn't it? It's not near the beginning, that kind of thing. Using shapes to count for an unknown number again, which again, like the year 1 work, encourages them to think and to use the number a bit sideways rather than straightforward addition and subtraction sums. Using number facts and place value to add and subtract. Explaining results, really important. It's the main reason, or the main way that maths has changed, I think, since we did it. You're not just told the system and told to get on with it, you have to explain how you got it. It doesn't matter how you get it, as long as you can explain. Last week, perfect example, Arwen had one way of adding up 2 numbers to 100, can't remember what it was, and some other child did it another way, and we wrote them on the whiteboard, and they kind of went, but you're supposed to be, and it wasn't how I was teaching it that lesson, but I said, but you got the answer. It doesn't matter. You will, and as adults, we've all got our own ways of working it out. It doesn't matter how you work it out, as long as you get the right answer, it really doesn't matter. And it was interesting for them to see that people do it in different ways. Explaining their results, recording their method. Doesn't really matter at this stage how they record it. They move on to column addition and subtraction and things next year. Really doesn't matter. Bridging.
Oh, that's hard.
Right, bridging through a multiple of 10. So it's where the number bonds come in. It's why we bang on about them so much at the beginning. So if they're adding something like 27 plus 6, that they know to split the 6 into 3 and 3 and make the 10, then add the 3. That's the way to do it. That's the easiest way to do it. It's not how they all do it, but that's how we're encouraged to teach them, and it's probably how, as adults, you actually do it, just you don't realise that's what you do. Some of them just get it like that, and actually we're not doing too badly, really. Finding totals and giving change. Fractions, I mentioned pizza, bars of chocolate, very good way of doing fractions. Halves and quarters as well, now not just breaking something into 2, cutting an apple into 4 quarters. Quite a lot of the activities are saying now, can you colour 3 quarters of something rather than just 1. Time, half past, quarter 2, digital now as well as analogue. And then once they've got those, the rest kind of comes. Once they can master that much, it's usually fairly straightforward. Some children find it really difficult, some children can just do it. It's why I've encouraged them, if they've got one, to wear a watch, and they do kind of, sometimes they end up in my pocket because they play with them more than they look at them. And I go, there we go. Solving simple problems, again, involving litres, half litres, always nice to get the water out. And sorting and classifying information. We did an awful lot on block graphs and collecting data and tallies and things before the holidays. And so it'll be more that. It's nice for them to go around collecting data. They love it, having a clipboard and going downstairs and asking them what their favourite crisp flavour is and all the rest of it. But then, what can they fill in the table that do the tally chart and do the total and work out on the block graph which goes at the bottom and which goes up the side. So that's math.